Phlebology as a field is constantly evolving, and thanks to the great variety of new technologies available, specialists are able to provide way more efficient therapies. In your opinion, what aspects provided the greatest innovations?
This is a very interesting question. Thank you for it. I started looking at venous disorders, disease, and interpretation as way back in the 80s. And at that time and presently, we still have a lack of understanding of venous pathophysiology in certain areas. And we've come to consensus. What was revolutionary was the fact that we went from open surgery to minimally invasive surgery, better known as percutaneous. And in the United States, I was the first vascular surgeon to embark on that career using radiofrequency and shortly thereafter laser. And it took at least 5 years for my colleagues to understand what I was doing as an explorer and understanding that our results were really good. And the shift toward that was amazing. It was adopted very quickly after 5 years, but it also helped that our government also supported insurance dollars for it as well. So it's been revolutionary. And then from superficial venous disease, we went into deep venous disease. And the advent of doing, again, percutaneous, understanding the problem of May-Thurner, which is compression of the iliac vein from the artery, and understanding that we could take care of that. And then the progress with complications of venous disease, venous ulcers, and being able to not solve the problem, but help patients recover from them and keep the recurrence rates low. And now, going forward with AI, it's going to be even that much more aggressive in terms of nuances in venous medicine, venous procedures, and understanding what's going on. So the future of venous disorders is immense.
How crucial is it this day to continuously exchange experiences among the scientific community in order to improve?
So one of the things that I believe in, because I've experienced 40 years of venous disease, is to give back. And I think the education is really important for our colleagues, and to share ideas, because we don't know everything we should know, especially the pathophysiology, and to see how other people approach problems. And for that fact, I've developed with a colleague of mine, Victor Canada, we've developed Venice University, which is exactly that. It's about give back, it's about education, it's about webinars, it's about periodicals, and it's a chat group on WhatsApp that has over 1,000 members. So if there's a problem with it, with your patient, or you don't understand something, you just ask WhatsApp, Venice University, and one of our colleagues will answer. So it's very important that we communicate. And another way is to do it is through live congresses like we're doing here at Venice, which is again very important.
What is your opinion on the use of the newest technology, such as the increasingly widespread use of AI, in terms of cost effectiveness?
So the big thing about the new technology is it cost effective. And there's a lot of things that go into cost effectiveness. And one of the things that I think is important is patient flow and how you manage your patients and the timing. So efficiency also adds to effectiveness, cost effectiveness. Some of the procedures that we do, the equipment is expensive, but if you look at patient outcomes, you look at patient satisfaction scores, they're really good. So what does that mean? So again, in the United States, most of our patients are insured. There's a small minority that aren't insured, and that's where me at my stage really concentrate on. But that being said, the insurance companies right now govern what we can do for a patient and when, even though we're the ones that are performing it, we're the ones that write the guidelines. And yes, they do follow them, but again, there's only a certain amount of money that the government has, that these private insurance companies have. And so I'm hoping with AI and influence and being able to show cost effectiveness, not just spending dollars, but the unknown. If I can spend $1,000 and make myself feel better, is that worth it? Is that cost effective? 100% yes.
Shall we talk about your latest work that you introduced today?
So the presentations that I did, Venice Mestre, were selected by the organizing committee. I talked about various and sundry different things. I also gave a workshop on superficial venous disease today. The take-home messages are what's important. What's the key element that you talk about in a presentation? So when it came to a particular presentation, for example, perforators and when you do them, remember perforators are the connection between superficial and deep. And so when are they indicated to take care of? And there's arguments all the time about when you should take care of these treatments. And that's what I went through. And it's interesting that it's still controversial, even though the guidelines that I supported, people say, well, we should be doing this, this, and this, but we don't have any fact for doing that. But there are some consensus with it. And then how to treat the perforators, there is very little consensus because there's so many different ways of treating a perforator. And so the give back here is the discussion that occurs after you present. And sometimes it's really good to be controversial, to hear our colleagues comment or ask questions. And that's the beauty of this conference. There's time for us to specifically ask questions. One of the things that was important was understand standardization. Is there any standard to treat a particular problem? And one of the things that was really important was there's an incidence of recurrent varicose veins even after you treat. And that can happen significantly. And then the question is, how do you treat them? And there are 5 panelists up there, and each one had a different way of treating. So we look for standardization in the future. It's not that they're wrong. This is how they treat the patient. But what is the standard?
What do you think was most interesting in today's event? And what aspects would you suggest we give more emphasis in the future?
So I think the veins and venous was put together very well. We went to superficial, we went to deep. We also had workshops. So it really covered the entire spectrum and even aesthetic phlebology. So the only thing I could add maybe would be debates, where we debate a topic that has no right answer. Maybe live cases, and that could be really interesting. Or as done here, which was done very well, there are case presentations within the talks, and that shows you what they're thinking. But sometimes if you do case presentations and you get audience involvement, that's really good, because then there's a whole dialogue between the case presenter and the audience, and then you can see the differences in philosophy and how people look at treatment. And I think that's really a good way of teaching.